Welcome to part 3 of strategies and supports for a new ELL student. Again, we're talking about Jorge, who is in grade 5. The method I'm talking about this time is academic instruction. SDAIE stands for Specially Designed Academic Instruction in English. According to SDAIE's Teaching Strategies by Dr. Carmen Sanchez-Sadek, the focus for this type of instruction is to build academic vocabulary. This needs to be done in a way that focuses not just on understanding the words, but developing mastery, which means being able to understand them and use them in context. There needs to be evidence that the student is learning the required material. Teachers need to access prior knowledge. This is making a connection with something that is already known. This can be as simple as a no wonder learn chart. There needs to be many opportunities for oral language practice, so the ELL student, Jorge in this case, has a lot of chances to hear and use the vocabulary. Strategies need to be used that speak to more than one learning style to help students acquire knowledge. Let's talk about what this means for Jorge in the context of an example. Let's say the class is about to start learning about the systems of the human body. They're going to begin with the respiratory system and need to learn academic vocabulary like respiratory, lungs, trachea, and diaphragm. In a unit like this, there would probably be about 10 to 15 vocabulary words needed for success. To start, Jorge's teacher could have the class work on an activity called clustering, webbing, or mapping, which is a strategy of pre-writing and can be used to access background information with the entire class or with a small group. I think it could also be used for pre-teaching students like Jorge who may need a bit of extra exposure to the content to practice the English. A group of students work together to create a map of ideas around a word. For example, the teacher could have them place the word respiration in the middle of the page, and students could add any ideas or words they think about from the word respiration also on the page. Graphic organizers would be a good help to Jorge throughout this unit. He could have worksheets that look like this. Graphic organizers like this would help Jorge organize his information because there are word banks and definitions to assist him in learning. I got these from Teacher Pay Teacher, and they'll also be referenced in the reference section. Comprehension checks throughout the unit are very important. This is a simple, do you understand type of question, and students can answer non-verbally by giving a thumbs up or a thumbs down to show their understanding. This technique is good with whole class instruction and during small groups. Corners. This is an activity used to introduce a topic or give a class a little bit more information. The teacher labels each of the 4 corners of the room with a vocabulary word, like the 4 that I have in blue here. Each student chooses one of the words and writes it on a 3x5 index card. Then, students go to the corner of the room representing their choice. In their corner, students pair up and share their reasons for selecting that corner. Information will be at each corner describing the topic and giving information about it. The topic is discussed. For example, the corners could be labeled respiratory, lungs, trachea, and diaphragm with information about each provided. Students go to the corner, learn about the figure, talk about it, and return to each team members or maybe at their table groups. This could be helpful oral practice for a student like Jorge, especially if he's able to have some oral sentence starters like, I learned that, to help him with the conversation. Picture this. This activity is useful as a vocabulary or concept review. A blank paper is divided into 8 sections. Students draw pictures or symbols to represent words or major concepts. Students are not to label their drawings. Then they exchange papers with a partner, and the partners try to correctly label each other's drawings. This would be helpful to Jorge because not only would it help him learn the academic vocabulary, but he would also have the chance to practice his oral skills. It's also a lot of fun. Finally, I added prediction. Students make a prediction about the subject they're about to read by selecting an answer to a multiple choice question. This could be a good teacher-led small group activity where students need to predict what happens to people who spend too much time in a polluted area, or maybe about the drawbacks of smoking. This would help students like Jorge interact with the subject while using his oral skills and either reading or listening to a passage be read to him. Now for multimodal learning. Multimodal teaching reflects the universal design for learning, meeting the needs of many different types of learners by addressing many different types of learning styles. There are 4 main learning styles: visual, auditory, kinesthetic, and reading-writing. It supports different learning styles by providing ways to remember information through many venues. This is good for an ELL student like Jorge, who needs lots of time to practice new vocabulary and learn social and academic English. According to Prodigy, interactive multimodal teaching helps a higher percentage of students develop higher order thinking skills. This teaching includes collaboration with peers, which is helpful for ELLs like Jorge to develop language skills. Even when 2 or more different learning methods are applied, it makes the material easier to learn and improves students' attention rates. As a result, the students can have more successful output. Let me give an example on the next slide. What does this mean for Jorge and other ELL students? When he's learning something new, the new word or concept needs to be presented in different ways. For example, if he's learning about renewable and non-renewable resources, Jorge will need to hear the words and practice them in different contexts to acquire the new information. He may need to watch a simple video about the subject. Another time, he could be asked to draw pictures of renewable and non-renewable resources. To gain more information about different resources, Jorge could read information about them. This may be done in Spanish, but it would be helpful for him to find some words he could translate into English. If Jorge's teacher decided to use an idea from the academic instruction model, the class could play a game of corners where different corners represent different resources they could learn about and discuss. This is a great discussion activity that could give Jorge some good oral practice with his peers. A fun way to remember content from this unit is with a song or a rap sung together as a class. This type of learning appeals to kinesthetic learners. This video by Mr. Squid is a good example of a way to use music and movement to meet the needs of kinesthetic learners. Often this type of video can be used daily to start the lesson, and the repetition will help students like Jorge. Repetition is a good way to learn. There'll be a link to this video in the references. Finally, having students work in partners to create a presentation or slideshow is a good way for students, including ELLs like Jorge, to show their learning. This can be as simple as posting answers to a question on Padlet or more complicated, like creating a short PowerPoint presentation to show the class. This could be an individual assignment or something done in groups. If group work was involved, it would give Jorge an opportunity to develop his oral skills and work on his social and academic language. There are many other ways to meet the needs of various learners in each class. This concept is important for ELLs because it allows them to have more chances to interact with English, both in a written form and orally. Thank you for taking the time to listen to my presentation. It is so important to meet the needs of our ELL students with creativity, careful planning, and consideration for their needs. I hope I've given some good insight into how to do that with appropriate strategies and supports. Thank you for listening.